number one resource that they use for it, the number one resource that they use to acquire it is simply Google. They are downloading email templates. They're running hacks that they found off of, interesting blog posts. They're finding digital marketers or hiring SDRs, whatever it might be, because that's what somebody else is doing, but that strategy isn't really contextualized to their business. It ends up eating up a lot of runway and ends up being very unsuccessful. Now, what's also important is we want to have this conversation within the context of early stage startups today and what it is like to fundraise and what investors like GrowthX and others in communities like Cincinnati are facing. I'll tell you, at GrowthX, we don't typically invest in companies coming out of San Francisco and Los Angeles, Austin, New York. We typically invest in companies coming out of, Northwest Arkansas and Indianapolis and Cincinnati and Tuscaloosa and places like that. Nascent startup ecosystems with underdeveloped venture capital communities. And what you need to be aware of is that venture capital, just like any market, is moving and evolving. It's doing so at a rapid pace. And all the information that you're seeing out there about stock market crashing and recession and inflation, it impacts the job of a venture capitalist. And how that directly has impacted the seed stage as well as the Series A companies is that it's lowering valuations while simultaneously raising the bar on what criteria you need to have met in order to be a qualified investment. So if you zoom back a few years, what you'll see is a trend where the same early stage startup with, let's just say, $500,000 in revenue in 2017, that company trying to fundraise in 2021, going to be the exact same company, but going to have a significantly higher valuation. Well, in plain financial terms, that company is still the same risk profile, but it's a lot more valuable. And at a certain point, that risk profile to the valuation became untenable. And so the response from the venture community has been that the risk profile has reached a boiling point where you can no longer fundraise on an idea or a concept. You need to be able to demonstrate that you have a problem that money can solve, that you have a problem that can be solved, and you have a market that can be amplified with capital. So this is what investors are looking for. And so when you think about your journey as a founder and how it relates to go-to-market and sales and revenue, as well as investor readiness, what you need to keep in mind is that being investor ready means a lot more than having a pitch deck, documents in a data room, and some revenue, or even any revenue. Even $1 million in revenue doesn't necessarily mean that you are investor ready. What investors need to see is substantive, intentional, systematic traction. A traction narrative that shows that over time you methodically acquired customers and stacked them in an order that demonstrates that you have the ability to scale that you cannot currently do, however, with your current capital resources. So we know, you all know exactly what that seed plus, that Series A investor is looking for. And you know the thing that they're going to hammer you on. You can't hide your revenue. You can't hide your customers. This is all going to come out in the process of due diligence. So our thesis here at GrowthX, in particular to the Revenue Accelerator, is we already know what the investor is looking for, especially as it relates to revenue. So why don't we just reverse engineer it? Rather than show up and say, well, it's time to fundraise, so I better take whatever information I have, slap some lipstick on it, and hope for the best. Why don't we get to work today on arriving at the story that we know would be most compelling to those investors? And what investors are looking for is very simple. Do you have a process that is repeatable that we can scale upon? And again, revenue doesn't mean you're ready for scale. It has to be the process of that revenue. Do you have a mature and repeatable sales process with a target market that you've demonstrated you can rinse and repeat over and over again? So that's not only the thesis and the drive and the conviction behind GrowthX, but it's also what is behind GrowthX Capital and MXP Online, and ultimately the Revenue Accelerator. This is all that we do every single day, is accelerate both pre and post revenue early stage startups, help them acquire customers, grow revenue, and in turn, attract investors. Now, I'll tell you as a proof point, many investors leverage our program as their due diligence. A good number of our program, every single cohort, is actually companies that have either just been invested in by an early stage investor, or it's a mandatory part of their due diligence process, because the insights generated, not just the revenue, but the insights generated for VCs are so incredibly tangible, and they're so much more impressive than what you can typically access in your standard data room, that this is quickly becoming the new standard of investor readiness. And it's quickly becoming the expectation for a lot of investors, especially in places, again, outside of Silicon Valley, where people don't have that incredibly high risk threshold, where your typical Midwest venture capitalist is used to being able to see a variety of different documentation, information, and prospectuses as they're looking to make certain types of investments. So again, the Revenue Accelerator, our sole purpose here over 16 weeks is to help you grow revenue. It is a hands-on program. It is not a passive program. It's not academic. It's not theoretical. Again, we're not going to have guest speakers. We're not going to ask you to do anything that is homework. We're going to ask you in this program to work alongside of myself and my business partners and my team to help work your sales funnel. Okay. And so what you get a high level in this program is very simple. Number one, and probably most importantly, you're going to get an experienced go-to-market expert to ride along with you and your team. Okay. So for some of you, that might be me. It means I am on call. I'm going to be working you through our program, our system, our platform, our playbook. I'm going to be reading and editing your email templates. I'm here to prep you for that demo meeting. I'm here to talk to your board member or your investor and contextualize our go-to-market playbook to your market, your product, your milestone, your runway, your fundraising needs. So you're getting a go-to-market expert airdropping into your team. And again, it's not high level. It's not office hours. That doesn't mean that we're going to check in with you. We're going to be driving and pushing the pace of execution of this program with one goal in mind. That goal is revenue growth. Number two, you're going to get access to a VC on your team who's going to help you translate that go-to-market expertise and information into a investable traction narrative. So that's my co-founder, Andrew Goldner. Andrew Goldner is actually a native of Cincinnati, so you all will like him quite well. He's a Bearcat. So Andrew is a Kauffman Fellow. He's an expert, fundraiser and VC. He deals with many local VCs in the Midwest as well, and connecting them with the companies that come out of this program. And just like myself or my other team members, he's going to be there to help advise you, not, that VC that gives you a little bit of feedback and then you go, running another direction. His job is to tag along in this program and to make sure that you're getting the right insights and you're doing go-to venture in a similar intentional manner as we're going to show you how to go to market. And the backbone of all of this is going to be a tangible, a practical, a systematic framework for revenue growth. That's called MXP Online, the Market Acceleration Program. Again, I'll send over a link to it, but everything that we do, you have access to today. That platform, those playbooks, that's the backbone of our program, of our approach, and the work that we'll be doing together. Again, it's not theoretical. You'll see that it is the actual playbook for you to take your company to market in a way that's unique to you. So we're not going to tell all of you day one, go hire a growth marketer. Each of you are going to take a different path. We're going to contextualize this playbook around you. And as you're going through that, through group workshops, small group workshops, one-on-one coaching, one-off, email interactions and calls, you're going to get that expertise hands-on over 25 hours of somebody working, an expert working on this process in your funnel with you. And the results of our program, on average, we see about 250K in new revenue. For the companies that successfully do this, in fact, we just wrapped up a cohort of 20 startups from Calgary and Edmonton, and the average growth reported over the course of those 4 months was 4 to 6x revenue. Those are those companies putting in work. They will all tell you it was not easy. They will all tell you it was quite hard, but they're all quite happy, as are the investors. They're quite happy to see that tangible revenue, and that 4 to 6x revenue. It's repeatable revenue, it's sustainable revenue, it's revenue that they can track and they can demonstrate and they can scale upon. So again, our program's about real results. 250K in revenue. Not only do we grow revenue, more commonly what we hear from people is, I was able to grow revenue faster while doing less work. A lot of this is about eliminating the spray and pray methodology, the death by demos that don't go anywhere, getting hyper-focused on the right customers and the right segments and the right sales process. And when you do that, creating an efficient revenue engine and vehicle that'll help you acquire the right customers much faster than you're currently doing today. Likewise, our program has a fee. It's a relatively small fee. And the overwhelming majority of people, if not 100% of people, I'll say 99% of people, make back that tuition incredibly quickly. We have an incredibly high NPS score. And as I mentioned before, there's a very strong cohort and contingent of venture capitalists that call upon us to leverage this program because they know that the due diligence that they get from it is largely unmatched. Oftentimes, the way that we end up meeting these VC networks is by founders like yourself participating in it. And all of a sudden, that founder sees that company grow and their board says, what the heck is going on here? And then that VC calls us and says, what is this program you're doing? And then that VC says, well, we're sending more startups this way. So everything that you're going to do in this program, it's also designed to communicate value and attract investors back to that traction narrative. And in certain instances, as you see from the picture here, we even invest. We use this program as due diligence for our fund and our LPs here at GrowthX. So a high level, just want to talk a little bit about some of the program resources. There are 5 really simple resources that you're going to get through this program. The first and most important, again, MXP Online. I'll send the link after this so that all of you can access it. But that's the backbone of our entire framework. Every template, every case study, every module, we're going to work you through step by step. They're the steps that are non-unique to any business. And again, these aren't persona exercises. We're not here to do more business model canvases. We're here to get hyper efficient on your customer acquisition strategy relative to your resources, your runway, your milestones, your fundraising goals. So everything that you're going to do in the Revenue Accelerator is designed to get the best punch, the best activity out of the human resources, i.e. me and my team, as possible. And the way that we do that is before you meet with me or before you meet with my team or Andrew, you're going to learn something in here and you're going to do some work that's outlined for you in incredibly specific terms here so that when we meet together, it's not a check-in call. It's not a, what'd you get done this week? We know the work that needs to be done. We've seen the outcomes from the companies that do that work. And when we can meet together and you've gotten up to our level to understand that we're all sharing the same language and goal and we're focused on a specific exercise, we can actually roll up our sleeves and start to actually impact and rewire that revenue engine. To help support some of the content in here, we've got over 12 group workshops. That's the entire cohort coming together. Some of those workshops are purely informational. We're diving deeper into content from here. Some of those workshops are highly interactive. We'll be asking you to share your progress on a specific aspect of MXP so that we can help adjust it and others can learn as we're going through that process. So we're in another cohort where we were just going through people's market milestone. What's that revenue target that we're trying to hit? And as we got through the first 3 people, the next 10 people were all going, oh, well, I actually just rewrote this because what I learned from the first 3 people just created a light bulb in my head. And I realized I thought my milestone was X, but now it's actually Y, and here's why I'm actually further along. So that's how we leverage everybody to create group learning. Likewise, in addition to the group workshops, you're going to have 5 one-hour small group sessions. So you're going to go through this program as an alloy team. It's an HCDC team. We're going to keep you guys together. There's small groups of 3 to 5 with one coach, and each of those sessions are entirely working sessions. Again, they're not office hours. We design those sessions around the most important aspects, the most critical, templates, documents, exercises of our program, so that you and your coach can take that first step together, so that you don't go down a rabbit hole misinterpreting something, or go down a rabbit hole in the wrong direction. We help you get started with that so that you can start to complete it as efficiently as possible, so that when we go to refine it, we're not taking 2 steps backwards, 1 step forward. From the small group sessions, you also have at least seven one-on-one coaching sessions. And again, these aren't office hours. These are highly scripted towards very specific aspects of the program. You will have a specific assignment for every one of those coaching sessions. And that's where myself or my team are going to work with you on the nuts and bolts of the information that we have and how we can actually apply it to customer acquisition. And then, of course, we're here. We're not, hiding in the ether somewhere. We're not going to tell you, hey, don't email me. You've used up all of your office hours. I can't, be constantly on the phone with you. If you talk to anybody who's been in our program, they will tell you we are highly responsive. I spend a good amount of every day, editing emails, providing feedback, looking at proposals, sending, if you work with me or you've worked with my other partner, Jeanette, you'll get used to seeing, 5-minute video clips from me. As you send a question, I'll just shoot a video over to you with some coaching advice. And everything that you see here, really, they should be considered minimums, because we don't hesitate to roll up our sleeves. And especially I'll say that, if you treat our time with respect and you make a good use of it, again, as investors, we're very highly incentivized to deliver more time and more resource and to provide an even better outcome for you. So it's not uncommon for a lot of these to expand for companies that make a really good use of that time. A little bit more information about MXP Online, how it's structured. Again, it's not your typical passive Udemy Coursera course. What MXP Online is designed to do is to get you from level 0, theoretical, I'm not quite sure how to approach this specific thing, to level 1, here's a rough draft estimate of how I should approach this specific topic, whether it be your resources, your messaging, your UVPs, your pricing model, your competitive analysis, your ideal customer profile, your hiring plan, etc. So in every single step of MXP, you're going to see the same consistent outline. I'm going to cover high-level concepts. I'm going to go into tactical best practices, things that you could do today and implement right now. Again, none of this is theory, right? When I say templates, again, throw out your concept of that business model canvas. Almost every single thing that we do has work for you to do. So every concept has a way for you to actually implement it into a sales strategy, into an experiment, into a process that you can hire upon and use as due diligence. To help you execute those, we have case studies. And those case studies, by the way, aren't Netflix and Twilio and Palantir. No, those case studies are from companies that I've invested in, companies that I've accelerated, and companies that have been through this process. So they're real companies with real revenue who have been through this process before, and you're going to go through the program largely with them. And then the real rub of all this is we're going to take everything that you learn these first 4 steps, and you're going to actually execute it. And we're going to learn together what's real, what's not real, what's validated, how do we pivot, why should we pivot, are we sure we should be pivoting? And we're going to take that drive, we're going to take those steps right along with you in the hopes that, like many of our participants, you're able to ultimately get to a place where you have revenue, or you have market validation, or you have scale, where you're able to month over month increase that MRR or increase that ARR and do so in a way that's attractive to investors. Now, briefly, I'll just cover it. And I know, obviously, Alloy is providing resources and scholarship for folks, but for anybody else who's interested, we also do like to contextualize this program in the other ways that you could approach growth. And so, the Revenue Accelerator is pretty straightforward. It's $3,500 over 4 months. You have full transparency of absolutely everything that you need to do. We have a proven track record and strong ROI. Now, the ways that we see other people approach in creating revenue and growing revenue is typically hiring that VP of sales, hiring an SDR, hiring a marketing consultant. I'll tell you that these resources are one of the reasons why we created GrowthX to begin with. They're high cost, high risk ways of trying to blitz market development that when you really start looking at the cost and the return on investment, especially as it relates to revenue, oftentimes they chew up more runway than they're worth, and they really don't leave startups in a better position than when they found them. So we're very much about capital efficient go-to-market. In fact, one of the first things that we do in our program, sort of like week 1, chapter 1, is we evaluate all of your resources. And more often than not, one of the first things that we do is we cut burn. We start reducing costs on things that frankly aren't working or are not stage relevant or should not be used right now if you don't, for example, really know who your ideal customer profile is. And a lot of companies benefit just by us significantly increasing runway and then giving them the time and the breathing room to be able to then experiment and knuckle down on that ICP. And again, especially with the cohort we just graduated, many of those companies, say well over 75% of them, started the program off by significantly reducing burn. And now they're in a much better place where they're acquiring customers at a much, much lower CAC, and the LTV has grown. Just, wrapping up, a couple of things on, what should you look out for if you're thinking about applying or being a part of this program, and what do successful founders look like? Successful founders are really able to commit the time and energy and focus towards the program and the process. I'm sure many accelerators say this, but for us, and again, reach out to anybody that we mentioned on LinkedIn, reach out to anybody on our website. They will tell you our program is not easy. It is a significant time commitment. Now, within that time commitment, I want to assure you that the only thing we're going to have you work on is your own business. Again, there's no socials. We're not going to get together and sort of do startup kumbaya. We're going to make the most use of your time, and we hope that you'll make the most use of ours. And we're going to ask you to really pay more attention to every little detail of your go-to-market, of your customer acquisition strategy than you probably ever have before. We're going to slow you way down and get you to really start building something that's incredibly intentional. And there's an extremely high correlation between the companies that see that 6x plus revenue growth and the ones that put in the most amount of time. So if you're wondering whether or not this program is right for you or whether or not you'll get the results, you don't have to look much further than, do you really want to prioritize revenue? And do your revenue behaviors, are you ready at least to match your revenue behaviors with your revenue beliefs and wants? To that end, you also have to be able to execute. So this is not for strategists. This is not for CEOs who want to play startup founder and want to kick this down to their SDR. This is a program that we specifically designed for founders, for founder-led sales and growth. And we certainly work with marketing teams and we certainly work with sales teams. But at the end of the day, somebody has to take responsibility for this program and for the execution of this program and every step of it. So if you were just to kind of come hang out on those workshops, maybe watch some of the videos, attend a session or two, you're not going to see the needle move. You're not going to see it move probably at all. So that's where the focus of our program is, on the point of contact. And what I mean by that, to go back to us talking about football before, if you were just to watch the videos and attend the workshops. That's the equivalent of reading the playbook, watching the film sessions, maybe even going out on the practice field and doing walkthroughs. But when you get onto the field and between those lines, if you're not prepared, the other team's going to run you over at the line of scrimmage. And the most important thing that we're going to work with you on is that point of contact where you engage with your customer and the experience that you create with them. And these are details. It's not strategy. It's real details that we're going to get into. And last but not least, what makes a really good founder for us is just simply put, a learn-it-all. People who are willing to question what they know, what they think they know, accept that they might not know everything, people who are willing to experiment, and perhaps, even more importantly, people who are customer-centric. This program, not just this program, sales, go-to-market is a customer-centric activity. It's not about your features and functions or experience. It's about what you do for your customers. And what we're going to have you do is the same thing we've had all of our successful founders do in the past, which is get into your customer's keystroke, really understand all the open tabs on their computer, really understand what does keep them up at night, and be able to communicate your value to them. So again, if those fit you, otherwise, the other criteria, I wouldn't self-filter. We, again, work with B2B companies that are selling, mid-market, SMB, enterprise, companies that are pre-revenue, companies that are post-revenue. We've worked with companies that are, large multinational corporations before, and they actually use our program as, as their go-to-market for some of their internal tools. So try not to filter yourself out too much. Again, the playbook that we have is widely applicable, and we've seen efficacy across those wide variety of industry verticals, including, okay, well, I'm a special use case. I'm hardware, I'm software, I'm fintech, I'm crypto, Web3, whatever it might be. We've accelerated it. We've done it. At the end of the day, those customers are businesses. Most businesses have a P&L. So as unique as you might think they are, they're probably not quite as unique when it comes to the go-to-market strategy. What I'll just wrap up with is just a couple of key dates here. Again, the application deadline is October 21st. We'll be conducting interviews starting around that application deadline right up until the end of the program. That said, when people apply early, we usually expedite that interview window so we can start closing off seats sooner rather than later. Wonderful. The program starts November 7th and it'll stop March 8th. Of course, we're going to observe all the major holidays. We can even send along that program schedule. As far as programming goes, again, there's no like half-day sessions or anything like that. In any given week, you might have a workshop and a one-on-one session. You might have a one-on-one session and a small group session. You might just have a working session. You might not have anything at all other than the work in MXP that needs to be completed. So again, we try not to take up a ton of your time doing things that aren't directly applicable to your ability to impact and go to market. Probably the last thing I'll share just before I wrap up, and then I'll hand it over to Anthony to just echo anything else or answer anybody else's questions, because I'd love to hear from you, is that the application process is incredibly simple. You just go to our website, the application's right there. It doesn't take a ton of time to fill out. Once you apply and we've reviewed your application, we'll reach out for a really simple interview. We'll talk to you for about a half hour, walk through that process. And then from there, the question is, are you as well qualified as the other candidates with the spaces that we have? So we're not going to take up a ton of your time in that application process. It's relatively easy to do. And of course, would love to hear from you. And probably the most important part of the application process is for you to assess fit and to really experience all the things that we have available to you to come into this program prepared, ready to go to work, eyes wide open about exactly what you're getting into. Because when you do that and you're coming into the program with a lot of momentum, we can do a lot of damage and create an awful lot of growth. So that's everything from my end about the program. Anthony, do you want to chip in and follow up with anything else before we open it up for Q&A?
No, I mean, I'd like to give everyone, an opportunity to ask a question, whether it's, through the chat or just the, go ahead and unmute yourself and just, chime in if anyone's got questions. I was going to throw up a slide here as soon as we're done with the Q&A session, just to kind of cover a few other things. But yeah, wanted to open it up, and if anyone has any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, now's the time. You got Max's attention. So
again, to Samir's question, there are no in-person sessions on our end. The program is entirely virtual. However, if there's a cohort of you all together in Cincy, really encourage you all to get together and to do everything in person. So you're certainly welcome to do that. We have other cohorts that do that. So certainly welcome and encourage. What other questions do people have, or was that just that straightforward? Yeah, shoot, John.
Hey, Max, how are you?
Great.
So just curious, what kind of entrepreneurial experience do you have?
Well, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started 4 businesses, including GrowthX. And in particular, I've done nothing for the past 10 years other than this. I've worked with literally thousands of startups on exactly this. That's what gives me the expertise to build this program, and every step of it is because the only thing I've focused on in my life's work up to this point is 0 to 1 sales and go to market. So I've got a lot of sales background. I've been an entrepreneur with an app development game, an education game, a tutoring business, and as well as GrowthX. So I've got a boatload of entrepreneurial experience myself.
Okay.
But again, I appreciate the question. I think a better thing to take a look at is jump into MXP Online and see if what I'm saying holds water to you. Because I don't want anyone to go, well, should I trust this guy? There's no reason for anyone to make that leap. Jump into MXP Online, see what we say. And I'll tell you, the best applicants that we see and the people who are the most successful, I just had this yesterday. I know my co-founder, Andrew, had this yesterday as we were doing some workshops on product market fit. The light bulb goes off. For the right people, the light bulb goes off and they said, this is exactly what we've been talking about. And so if it does that for you, wonderful. But, I'm not your guru. No one said that I'm the world's best entrepreneur, but I am certainly better than improvising. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Hey, Max, Apps here.
Hey.
In terms of, top 2 or 3 things in historically that have been not necessarily disqualifiers, but where the attributes where the organizations or the founders didn't have the success that they were hoping. Are there any?
Yeah,
particular...
that's not really a mystery. It's willingness to do the work. It's fighting the process. It's just execution. That's it. I mean, and it shows up usually within the first 4 to 6 weeks of the program. I can very well say this company is not showing up prepared. It's plainly obvious that they haven't learned anything in MXP. You're not showing up to the meetings. Your documentation is not completed at all. What am I supposed to do? All the work for you? Right? So that's really it, Apps. I mean, it really is very plain. You're either going to do the work or you're not.
So it's just commitment to the process.
It's the process. Like we've laid out every step of that process. We make it extremely easy. There's no ambiguity to this process. You either do the process and I can help you with that, or you don't. And that really is the indicator 100% of the time, cohort to cohort. The more you lean into the process and put into it, the faster it goes. The more you fight the process, the more you resist focusing on a specific customer, the less time and effort and focus you put in, the more you just keep spreading your time across a variety of different initiatives. Most of them don't have anything to do with go to market, the less successful you'll be. So it really is, for a lot of folks, at least the ones that are successful, is the ones that are unsuccessful. It comes down to time and execution. You know, the only other things I throw in there is, if you know you're going to be fundraising in November and December, and that's going to eat up all your time, pocket this program for a later date. It's just going to take up too much of your time. And the other thing is, if you know or have a hunch that your product doesn't really work, or you don't know what home, if you don't know if your product has a home, that can also be a real challenge. We're going to reveal if your product has a home or not. But if your product doesn't have a home, that is going to be an outcome, right? If you developed a product without a specific use case, which hopefully none of us have done, but if you developed a product without a specific use case, we can certainly explore it. And on a few occasions, we've been successful in finding that use case, but it's going to be very challenging if we have to, invent one.
Thanks.
You're welcome. What other questions do people have?
Looks like we have a couple of questions from the chat here. Starting with Samir, are single founders at a disadvantage to be qualified for this program?
Not at all. Not at all. There's nothing to do with it. Are you going to work? Great, you're in. So again, we have a very wide aperture for this program. Try not to self-disqualify. Again, you have revenue, you don't have revenue, you have a big team, you have a small team. These are the things that my team is going to decide upon, whether or not you have the horses to make that work for you. Julia's question, I'm in the process of trying to raise funds to get my product manufactured. I have no revenue at this time. Well, the question, Julia, would be, do you have a product that can be sold? If you don't have a product that we can take to market, then I would hold off on doing this program. And that's true for everybody. You need to make sure that you at least have something that we could bring to market. So it doesn't need to be your final. Certainly a lot of MVPs out there. If you know your product is going to be ready in a few months, and you can say that with a lot of confidence, then we could certainly discuss bringing it in. But again, the issue here is not that you have no revenue. Plenty of companies. In fact, as we were going through the slides, one of the companies on there, Aerotrax, a Web3 company, they came into our program with zero revenue, no customers whatsoever. Not only were we able to find product market fit and accelerate it and get them revenue, but it was so impressive that we invested in them. That was our latest investment. So again, pre and post revenue is not the blocker here, but if you don't have a product to deliver, I would hold off from the program. Any other questions?
Anything else? Yeah, real quick before I let everyone go here, and I want to be respectful of time. I'm just gonna bring up a quick slide here that covers kind of next steps for everyone today. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so next steps in terms of, if you're interested in applying to the GrowthX Revenue Accelerator program, which, I mean, like I said, I think this is a tremendous opportunity for Cincinnati based startups, and we're happy to partner with GrowthX on this opportunity. The applications are open. The application window is open right now, so you can apply. The link is right there, and I'll send this out to everyone afterwards. You can click on this link, and then it'll take you out to the Revenue Accelerator application, and you can apply today. And as Max said, it's not not complicated. It's pretty basic stuff, so it's not going to take you 2 hours to complete that. With the partnership that we've developed with GrowthX, we're making 5 scholarships available to the program. So that's a $3,500 value, and Max talked about that. What they charge for that for the program. We're going to make 5 scholarships available. You must be an Alloy Growth Lab member to be eligible for the scholarship, and that's not a difficult process. All you need to do is go out there and apply to our program, and you'll see that link here in my slide deck as well, where it says apply to the Growth Lab here. There you go. Just simply fill out that application if you're not a current Alloy Growth Lab member. As Max said, the program starts November 7th. The deadline is October 21st, for the applications to be in. And like I said, you can go out there and do that now. Max, as Max stated, the earlier the better. They can start that interview process sooner with you if you're interested. So like I said, I'll send this out to everyone who registered and attended today, just so you've got this. But yeah, that's the process. We expect a pretty good response from this, and we're probably gonna have to make some tough decisions in terms of those 5 scholarships. And we're gonna sync up with Max and the GrowthX team throughout this process to make sure we get the 5 5 appropriate companies. But don't be discouraged. We intend to continue this program into next year and years to come. So if you don't make it this round, we intend to have other rounds going forward as part of this partnership. So that's it. Any other questions?
John, you got a
comments?
question?
Yeah, real quick question. So last question. What's your application to acceptance rate?
Our application to acceptance rate is about 30%.
And how many applications do you usually get?
That certainly ebbs and flows, but realistically, we try to. So just full open kimono here. We try not to just take applications from anybody walking around the street. So we very intentionally reach out to organizations like Alloy and say, listen, we want to partner with you to meet your startups, because what can Alloy do for our program? You're pre-vetted to me. I can ask Anthony, who are you? And was this person a good participant? Is this person going to make me bound out of bed in the morning or regret waking up in the morning, right? And I'm telling you, that's a very important part of our goals and our program here. So we try to fill the funnel as directly as possible through organizations like this. That said, we're usually looking at anywhere between 75 to 100 applications. But I want to be very clear as this relates to you all. There are 5 spots available that are pre-allocated. So you all are only competing with each other as far as this is concerned, right? So if there are 4 applicants, and assuming that you 4 are otherwise qualified, and you 4 have those spots, and there's 1 more available. So you are not going up against the overall pool of people that could be getting into our program, assuming, of course, that you're still all relatively well qualified. So that's a big part of it for us. The fact that I can pick up the phone and talk to Anthony and also do my due diligence on who comes into that program. It's very intentional by design.
So roughly 25 companies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So Max, I've got a question. So you mentioned B2B companies. Does that instantly exclude anyone who, because we do have a few B2C startups that I think may be on this call or part of our program. Our B2C, is that
Yeah, unfortunately, it would exclude B2C.
Okay.
While we can certainly be helpful to a B2C company, especially at the early stages, at the end of the day, when we get to the actual execution of growing revenue, you just have extremely divergent paths to get there. Just totally different methods and tools, capital that needs to be spent, investor profiles that you have to look towards. So that's where if we tried to shoehorn both B2B and B2C together, we would just be hurting both groups, right? Our expertise is in B2B go-to-market, so that's certainly, where the program is focused. Now that said, we do certainly work with and have invested in many a marketplace. So if you're a marketplace that's both B2B and B2C, we can help there. The last use case that I'll share is it is not uncommon for us to meet B2C companies in the application process that we can make a reasonable case for actually being B2B companies. This actually just happened in our last cohort of the Revenue Accelerator. We had a company called Hobby Tribe that was purely B2C, met them through one of our partner programs. In the application process, we just explored what would B2B look like, and is that actually a better market or go-to-market for you? Turns out it was. In fact, I just heard from this founder today. He's got a nice, healthy pipeline of over 40 pilot opportunities. He closed five of the five first opportunities that came through with pretty large multinational brands. So if making that transition makes sense or something you're looking at, it's certainly something we can look at with you.
All right. Anything else? We've got about 3 minutes left here. Happy to give them back to you guys if you don't have anything else.
Yeah, I'll just share. I put a link in the chat. That's from yesterday. Our most recent cohort of 20 startups just wrapped up. Those are live results that came out of our wrap-up meeting. Companies just saying, this is what I got 4 months later. It's the carbon copy program of what you all are looking into. So take a look at that. Certainly, again, we want to make this as transparent as possible. And likewise, feel free. I invite you all to reach out to your network, see other founders who have gone through this, ask around, please kick the tires. We want everyone to come in this program not skeptical, but fired up and excited about it. And what I'll tell you from our perspective, what makes a really good applicant is somebody who's done their homework and is excited and can see the potential and where we can go together. Samir, do you still continue the relationship with the Startup Post program? Absolutely. Again, I heard from the startup that we transitioned to B2C. There's instances where we are now forever intertwined with the company, like the one I mentioned before, where we are invested in that company. We have, companies that send us, their friends along, of course. So we're still engaged. You have access to our platform for a while after the program actually wraps up. Again, I hope, we're getting across the point that we're just not a transactional educational organization. It's not like you reach graduation day and I say, lose my phone number, don't ever talk to me or email me again. This is intentionally for us about relationship building. We hope that you will stay in touch with us. We hope that we have the opportunity to not only inflect growth at your company, but to follow along and potentially ultimately one day either invest or put you in touch with somebody that we know that can invest. So it absolutely is meant to be a long tail relationship.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you, Max, and thanks everyone for coming out this afternoon. Appreciate it. You all should have my contact information. Feel free to get hold of me, or if you need to get hold of Max, feel free to do that as well. And I'll follow up with the couple slides that I covered today. I actually dropped them into the link over there in the chat if you need to grab those, but I'll also follow up with an email of the link as well. So thanks everyone for coming out. Appreciate it. And thank you, Max.
Hey, you're welcome. Looking forward to meeting you all soon. Have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.